lazyfluency パーキャストへようこそ。お互い英語と日本語を切り替えながらカジュアルな会話を通して皆さんと一緒に言語を学んでいきます。あゆみです。
And I'm Joey。
そして今日のテーマは日本の性器信仰。その前にいいね、チャンネル登録、フォロー、また聞いているプラットフォームでレビューもお願いします。高ファイルのサポートもよろしく。それでは今日のテーマ、日本の性器信仰。
The goal of today's episode is to not go into the explicit content. Technically, when you can qualify as your podcast being clean or explicit, but we are talking about genitals. So if you don't want to hear about genitals and Japanese festivals and culture related to genitals, this is your warning, but this is what the episode is about. Why? Because of it probably was like a huge deal, but there was like a minor Twitter Japanese slight controversy regarding genitals. And why is that the case, Ayumi?
なんて言うんだろう、お祭りである物をなんて言うんだろう、掲げるじゃなくて崇めるだ、崇めてそれをなんかみんなでわっしょいわっしょいしようみたいな。
Yeah, Japan has a lot of. We'll go through a bunch of different ones of different varieties, but there were some like I took some snippets from like some news coverage on it at the very bottom. Do you see like there's an image at the bottom saying some of the comments? These were some like Twitter comments.
ポルノ祭りにしか見えない下品って、下品とか伝統とはいえ時代に合わない。いつまで日本はあんな悪習を放置し続けるのかみたいな。
Yeah, basically people questioning why are these traditions continued? Are these suited for the modern day? There were some people when I was reading Japanese, like I guess I would say my guess would be younger people, but who knows? But online, basically being like, is it sexist? Like the existence of these traditions. We can start with one there's a bunch of different ones, but the one that was I think like this was like 4 or 5 days ago. There was a matsuri called the Owase Gata.
これOwaseって読むの？へー。
Yeah, apparently, yeah, it's a weird reading. In terms of kanji, it's big boy stem shape.
Which is
and
penis.
This is a festival. Yeah. This is a festival in IT Prefecture. There's actually another one in IT Prefecture where you get a large wooden male genitalia, and like it's looks like it's, how big is that? Like 8, I don't know, like 3-4 meters. I don't know. It's pretty big. And the people, as Amy explained.
300
Oh yeah, I have it open. Yeah. Oh, wait, whoa, that is heavy. Oh yeah, you're right. It says right there, 600, 2.7 meters, over 300 kilos. And you get a bunch of people in like white like robes with like black little hats, and they go around like carrying it. And there are a lot of different intentions for like the different specific festival, but in terms of this one, I think it was, what's it called? The Good Harvest. As well as like having, what's it called? Like prosperous ancestors. I guess you could think about it that way. Those are like the two primary things. I mean, have you ever seen any of these festivals in person? We'll cover some other in a second.
In person はないね。地元のそういう、なんて言うんだろう。お祭りはわかんない。多分なかったし、で、あったとしても私の親が連れてかないよね。だって、こういうお祭り行くのって、あれじゃないの。なんか映画です。セクシュアルシーンがある時の、親と一緒に見るみたいなawkward moments じゃない。もし行ったとしたら。
Okay, actually, I'm actually curious about that. Do you think that this is something like the average older Japanese people would think as being like actually like gehin or lewd or weird or rude?
もうその祭りの地元の人がさ、まあ毎年恒例にやってるとか、もう慣れ親しんでるものだから、まあそれはもう下品とは思わないかもしれんけど、そういうのに慣れてない人にとっては、ちょっとすごい、ビジュアルがもうビビッドだからさ、もう、ね。ちょっと慣れてないと大変そうな、ね。
I mean, with me, if you're watching like a film with because it's like you're watching a movie, and then a lot of times when you're watching a movie, you're not anticipating a sex scene, and it's like, and obviously there are a bunch of, we'll talk about this later. I was actually wanting to talk about like where the line is between art, culture, and like something being pornographic. But at the very least, when you're watching like, a movie, a lot of times with your parent, like the intention is like, this is what we came to watch and this is what we got. But I'm saying with this, when you're participating in this festival, for, it is like a long historical tradition, and the actual festival in itself, no one is like, having sex. Like they're just, and this is part of, like I said, a tradition, and it's not necessarily like the tradition itself isn't innately sexual, although it is related to sex in the sense that, like having good offspring or whatever, like bountiful offspring in that way. But what are your traditional impressions? Do you think this is like, do you personally have any aversion initially to the existence of this?
自分が行くのだったら、自分が知ってる人と行くのはちょっとなんか、あれじゃない？なんかコメントしづらいじゃん。まあ、めっちゃ仲いい人とかだったらさ、なんかあそこの溝のあたりがいいよねとかさ、なんかわかんないけどさ、けど、なんて言うんだろうね。ちょっと仲いいぐらいの友達と行くのはちょっと無理かな。私、
Wait, you're thinking like if you're actually close with somebody, it makes it more difficult? Or you think ちょっと as opposed to like very?
そう。だし、いやでもな、ちょっとダメだ。めちゃめちゃ仲いい人でも無理だ。私は一人で行きます。行くんだったら。
So do you have any, like, we'll talk about, okay, for this episode, I did a bunch of weird research, like figure out what is the proportion of Japanese festivals that are centered around male genitalia versus female genitalia. And there are ones that are centered around female genitalia, but the vast majority are male. And that's like another thing. Do you feel any specific way about the actual, prominence of it being like male genitalia? I'm not entirely sure what the argument would be of this being like necessarily sexist in one way or another. We'll talk that a little later, but I'm wondering do you have any like vibe like that? If you saw a bunch of people carrying like that, does that make you feel uncomfortable or something?
Perspective っていうか、まあ別にやりたいことやればいいんじゃないっていう。自分は行かないけどっていう。まあ、ご家庭にどうぞって感じが。
Why wouldn't you go?
別に面白いと思わないから。
You don't think it's funny? What 面白い are we talking about? That's come on. What?
そもそもなんていうの、神社とかお寺私別に好きじゃないんだよね。なんかなんか魅力的に感じないし、そういうお祭りとかもあんまり好きではないから、お祭り全体的に。
This is the biggest downer of all time. What are we talking about here? When people are going washai, you don't want to go washai?
ワッショイね、しかも。そうね、あんまり魅力的に感じないから、そもそも。だから、で、まあ、なんていうの
You're saying you're too cool for carrying a 2.7 meter male genitalia around top.
まあなんかさ、これ思ったのが、多分、今時始まった、まあ風習ね、とかだったら、まあハロウィーンで、例えば、まあ誰かが、ね、オブジェクトを、祀るっていうかなんていうの、みんなで担ごうみたいな、そんなの始まったら、まあ多分警察かなんかが介入してきて、やめてくださいとはなると思うんだけど、まあこういう昔から続いてる、まあね、風習とかだったら、まあ多分そういうね、警察とかは絶対出てこないし、ね、なんか、その昔からだからこそ、
this is the thought process I was having. And okay. Oh man, there's so many different things I want to talk about here, but I will say by that logic, and I know we're kind of stepping right here, but I personally think, for one, Japan has so many, I find it confusing that Japan has so many different things related to traditional culture. Apparently, by the way, I recently learned that sumo apparently started naked, like sumo wrestling. Like apparently it was done initially naked and then fundoshis came later. But like Japan has so much stuff where people are just butt naked. I've talked about the podcast a lot and these culture things. But for some reason, Japan feels like it needs to censor male genitalia. You know what I'm saying? Or both genitalia in general. I'm like, what is this? It's so confusing to me. I'm like, what are the message? Like, if to me, you should not be allowed to have this festival if like pornographic material needs to be censored. There's like a huge like incongruence in that.
だから、あれ言ってるじゃん。昔から続いてるものは、寛容だけど、最近のものとかだと、やっぱりやめようねってなってんじゃないの？
If there's this idea that, exposing people to genitalia is bad for them, wouldn't it be bad for them regardless if it's associated tradition? Is one of the thoughts I had. But I do want to, let's talk about some of the other festivals because this was just one of them. There's another one which is below, I think this is the Ka na Mara Matsuri. And do you want to describe the Kanamara Matsuri versus the previous one?
縦になってるし、ピンクなんだよね。
Yeah, that's like one of the specific identifiers with this festival. And also there also are balls with this festival.
でさ、これおもろいのがさ、なんか陽気な外国人が多いみたいな書いてある。その観客として。で、he has a hat of the head みたいな。ヘッドがヘッドっていう。
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's one more. So like, so a lot of them are around the same thing in terms of like what they are celebrating, I guess, or what you're wishing for. But there are like different iconic ones based on like shape, size, and color. The first time I encountered one like of these festivals, I think I talked about the podcast, was in a movie that I found the name of for this episode called Wood Job, like WWODJOB. And just for an example of ones, if you're wondering, that like aren't just like male genitalia and carrying them around, and that being the festival. In this festival, I can't remember. I think I wrote in Japanese what the festival's name was. I don't remember what the reading for this was. Do you see? It's like the very bottom. I'm gonna get it wrong, but it's also from IT. Yeah, it's also from IT Prefecture, and instead of making like one monument, you make two. You make one monument for female genitalia and one monument for male genitalia. And at least in the movie Wood Job, what you do is, and this is like, I guess one of the most explicit of all of them, is you get this giant like male genitalia, and then people push it, and they push it through this embodiment of female genitalia, and it probably is, obviously it's like wood. Both of them are made out of wood, and like I don't know, rope. So obviously none of that is real. But and if you keep scrolling down, I mean, you can see some other examples. There are other examples of, the male version of this, but just 100% for women as well. It's like I said, it's not as common, but that's giving you an idea of what other kinds can be. Like, I don't know if maybe I'll put some of like the names if you're curious, inside the description, to see like what some of them look like. But I did want to, like, going back to why privates in general are considered to be like taboo, and what the specific damage of that is. I don't know if you've thought about this or not.
確かになんでだろうね。それは、やっぱり親しいね、その行為自体も親しい人としかしないじゃん。に対して、もう親しいっていうのも、もう家族ぐるみとかさ、もう恋人同士とか。だから、友達とか、もう知り合いとかも、もちろん全く知らない人に対してその話をすることが、抵抗感があるんじゃない？だから、ちょっとタブーとされてるとか。
Well, I did look into this a little bit, and I was curious, and so I kind of want to hit you with some of the stuff that I learned and see, your thoughts about it, because obviously there are other, like most other, like this whole hiding your genitalia thing is like a very human thing. I don't know if you thought about it this way, but there are plenty of animals that don't do that. And there are a lot of different factors, and I won't read all of it because it's whatever, but one of the first most obvious things that why it ended up being relevant is like physical protection. So like that's one of the reasons that we started covering stuff to begin with, apparently, is like, obviously this is sensitive, the reproductive organs, so you want to protect them. And so that's where the idea that probably we started covering up with clothes. The second thing that I thought was interesting, and when you like with humans specifically, and I know this is pretty vulgar, but I guess, and I'm wondering, like, I know there are human societies where they don't cover up as much specifically, but basically, humans are very social. And if you have because we stand upright, like a lot of animals, like imagine a monkey or something, like they're on all fours. And if you're looking at a monkey in front of it, it's kind of covering its genitalia. But if you're standing up on 2 feet like a human, you're exposing, like when I'm talking to somebody, both people are talking to each other, they're both exposing their genitalia to each other. And one of the things I was reading was basically saying that when you do that, back in the day, you have the likelihood of sending mixed signals. Like in one sense, you're saying, you're someone can like see your you're exposing yourself,
なるほど。
and that can cause like social disruption and cohesion. And so that's one of like
なるほど。
the reasons
確か
that
に。That's
they think that
interesting.
clothes develop. Imagine it was legal. Like if it was legal tomorrow, it wasn't a law. Like you wouldn't it wouldn't be public indecency if you were allowed to walk around naked. First question, I guess, how many people do you think people would do that? Like in Japan, it's not illegal anymore. They just say, hey, you can do it by the way. If you want to, you can.
いや、でも普通に不便じゃない？だってさ、I don't know for guys だけど、for girls, women, なんか、そもそも走るとかってなると痛いじゃん。から、もう不便になると思うよ。だから、私は全然するっていうか、なんていうの？今まで通り。
I mean, you think that's like the main thing that people are keeping, like, you know, what is it called? I think a lot of people, if they said like, even if it was legal, maybe one of the reasons they still wouldn't close. And like, I know like we're modern society and whatever, but it just is the case in some ways. Like if somebody's and this might be because we're socialized already. Like if somebody's naked, it just is the case that people around you are going to, I don't know, be sexually enticed, even if you like are not inherently trying to be sexual. And I think there might be a lot of socialization with that as well. But when I was reading about, you know, the history as to why they think like human society is built like that in general, it kind of made me think like in some sense, I kind of understand, at least when it comes to people wearing clothes, why we developed like laws and stuff around it. But in terms of like,
ファッションってさ、その人を表現するっていうのもよくあるから、もうファッション好きな人はもうもちろんさ、even if you're allowed to be naked, I think they'll continue wearing じゃない？その expression だからもうその。
Well, no, I guess I was saying like I think the biggest reason why it's like actually prohibited is probably has to do with like literally just social cohesion and like not that people would go crazy and there'd be, you know, massive chaos, but you probably would have a lot of situations where it might lead to like increased violence against women or children and like and by people wearing clothes, you're reducing that from happening. I think like if you're wondering like why there's like a law against it. So, but I was basically wondering like, could we as like modern humans actually overcome this? And I don't know, like in modern society, I actually just don't know if I could ever see that being the case. Like in like a tribal society when you don't have all these like social conditioning, other stuff, like maybe I know it currently exists, but and by the way, I would think like because there are like festivals for both genders, I think that makes it a lot less weird. Like for both festivals, it's like guys are helping carry and some, you know, I think some I saw women carrying as well, but I don't really see the argument for this specifically being sexist. I don't even think it's like weird in some sense because it's like funny and we have this aversion to it, but I think because of that, it actually is good to have. Like it's like guys, like
もしに実際の人間だったらもうさすがにあれだけど、まあオブジェで偽物だからっていうのもあるよね。
Yeah. And that's kind of how I was thinking about, by the way, with like the whole like censorship and stuff like that. Like when you have something that is physically not a human, whether it be like your phone screen and you're looking online or like these objects, there's no possibility of harm associated with that genitalia, like the person who has it.
アートみたいなもんだもんね。よく西洋絵画とかでもさ、まあ結構昔のヨーロッパなんかみんな女の人のね、ネイキッドの絵とかも描いてたし、まあ、男の人もそうか。でも大体女の人じゃない？なんか描かれてるのって。
I mean, there's both. Like, you know, if you go to the like Greeks, you have like the statues, right?
まあそうそうそうとかだしね。そうだからもうアートになるともうみんないいよねってなんだよね。
Yeah, I definitely think what's it called like this. I don't know. The thing is like I would think like having stuff like this would make people less weird. I mean, like less how should I say it? Like less weird about being prudes, like being very like anti anything like that. But I don't know. I guess not that we have a bunch of old Japanese people listening, but I am curious to know what the perspective of like older in the comment section, if you're wondering, it's probably not really older Japanese people. Most people in their, men in their 40s, it was all like, oh, you're trying to like the kids these days are trying to get rid of our culture. How dare they? But based on what your impressions, you probably think your parents would think this is like gehin, even though it's like, traditional culture.
Nah.
But let us know, would you attend and like participate in one of these festivals? You could. And I just really want to hear your thoughts, whether it be related to like the taboo surrounding clothes, or these festivals in general, or maybe like art statues as Amy mentioned. But yeah, let us know. And we're back with the final section. And if you made it to the final section, that means send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com with a comment, question, language related, and or otherwise. And I really wanted to do the middle section this week because Amy's actually been traveling a whole bunch. But this is Amy's doing this right before work because she actually has not had a single day off this entire week and still working today. So if people are wondering, is the middle section dead? No, it's just that on top of Amy's normal working, like on her free days, she's basically traveling to different what's called like hospital sites. So it's gotten especially difficult to do the podcast. But anyway, we have a comment from Brian, and which I think is a new commenter. And I think this was on YouTube, and this was responding to the last episode. So definitely agree on your peers decide what you play note about the playground. Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh! / Pokemon. A thing of note, though, is that I think Yu-Gi-Oh! / Pokemon were definitely propelled further in elementary / middle schools when I was a kid, purely because they had a cartoon and merchandise. I only knew about Magic going through the BNG club where there were older kids. Thank you for the comment, and just a reminder, I'm not entirely sure, board games?
Board games.
I don't know, it'd be... But there's no and, I don't know, board and games. I don't know what BNG and girl, for being honest, is.
Boys and girls.
Boys and girls, Boy Scout. I think probably games or something. But yeah, the previous episode was about the stickers and like the fat and like collecting and stuff like that. So I was asking about people's experience with collectibles. And I can't believe I didn't mention that, the whole component of having like the TV show component. Were there any, I guess now, were there any girl fads that you remember back in the day associated with any sort of TV or, pop culture?
どういうこと?
Like with collection.
テレビでやってたものが実際に流行ったかみたいな.
Well, so what this was specifically responding to is I was saying back in the day, there were basically the main source of influence was your friends, and you weren't necessarily being told what to do by an algorithm. What Brian's pointing out is, well, there might not have been like the algorithmic pressure, but there was TV, and so a lot of the things, the reason that a lot of people got into Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon is because they got exposed through the TV. So I guess I'm curious if there's any like things that you can pop up in your head, like girl targeted TV that led you to, for example, in the US, I might point to Barbies. There are like a lot of Barbie ads.
Got it. いや、プリキュアとかじゃない？プリキュアって知ってる？
Yeah, oh, that's the, yeah.
あれで仮面ライダーとかさ、なんか戦闘系のがさ、男の子が好きで。プリキュア、そうね、うちらの代はプリキュアだったな。
Do you want to explain what プリキュア is?
プリキュアってそもそもなんだろうね。プリティキュア
In English, the same thing.
あ、そうなんだ。とか、セーラームーンとかさ。
Sure. Oh, of course.
まあそうね。だから、変身してめっちゃかっこよく戦ってやっつけようとかじゃなかったっけ？私、プリキュアは、ちょっと見てたかな。ちょっと見てた気がする。けど、まあそうね。あと、何が流行ったか。プリキュアに対して。まあ、プリキュアグッズとか。あと、コスチュームとか。
did they not have like Sailor Moon figures or something? I'm surprised I haven't like seen that.
セーラームーンはね、ちょっと昔なんよね。うちらの代は、プリキュアなんよ。
Well, it would have already, okay, and that's like I know it's separate, but it's one of those magical girl. Do they have figures for Purikyo and the other ones?
One of the, what?
Did you have any like figures, like anime, like what did you collect? Did you collect anything related to
No. いや、フィギュア
They just left that on the...
ないね。そもそも、うちの家庭がそんな感じじゃなかったから。
No, what I'm saying, but did you like see it around you? For example, like in the US, like Pokemon. I mean, obviously Pokemon's massive nowadays, but like, people collecting the stuffed animals, people collecting the card game. And I think a lot of people, like for Yu-Gi-Oh, my first exposure to Yu-Gi-Oh was through the anime. And then later I got into the card game.
ないかな、わかんない。女子って何するのわかんない。私ずっとさ、サッカーと水泳とかしてたからさ、全然そういうのに触れてこなかったんだよね。楽しいと思わなかったの。
There's a thing that I guess I'm curious about your perspective. I'm not sure if you thought about it specifically, but I've thought about it constantly, which is like the ethics of making kid-targeted entertainment that encourages gambling. Like, for example, in Japan, I mean, maybe you can think, oh, like guys are definitely, they're with their booster packs and getting, they're, that's a form of gambling. And I would agree with you. But I think the people, when I really think who are gambling addicts, when I go to Japan, it's all like the girls. They're like dumping thousands and thousands of yen in every gacha machine possible. And a lot of those, that like ecosystem is based off of, the, like we told you, Purikyo and others, other stuff. And maybe it's not like as explicitly gambling because people aren't trying to like sell them, do a secondary market and make money off of them. But there is definitely a degree of people are just dumping money to get a specific thing and then, you get stuck with one.
いや、なんかさ、そういうコレクションするのって、まあ男の人もコレクションするかなと思うけど、なんか物欲あるので大体女の人じゃない？まあ今となってはやっぱり男の人も、まあだんだんそうなってるとは思うけど、まあファッションであったり、小物とか、だと結構女の人の方が物欲とか、コレクションする、傾向がある気がする。で、男の人はなんだろうね。男の人って何やってんの？男の人もっと実用的なさ、ことを求めてない？例えばさ、女の人のバッグとかね、バッグわかる？ハンドバッグとかもさ、女の人はめちゃめちゃ、なんかこれ何が入るのってぐらいちっちゃいさ、バッグ、売ってたりとか、まあ使ってたり。だけど男の人って大体結構デカめのバッグとかだったり、するじゃん。だからやっぱり。
Well, I'm talking more about the, like, what I would say, the not just collecting, but collecting with, for example, we were talking about, the stickers, right? With the stickers, especially they were targeted towards you as a kid, right? And I don't know if you had a specific thing where you're like, I want this sticker set, and maybe stickers are something that are less gambling associated because you don't have to like, you don't have to guess, right? You get the thing you buy. But I definitely like now, like this is adjacent to the topic we're talking about in terms of like men's stuff or gacha, which I think, a lot of women are into. I think it is really weird that so much of like kids entertainment is kind of getting them early hooked on kind of light forms of gambling. Like even me, I'm saying like, I'm really into, like, I'm saying it's like a long-term plan, but I'm saying, sorry, go ahead.
どのコンポーネントがさ、ギャンブリングなの？
Gacha? You don't know? The component of gambling, like gacha, basically you want a specific thing. You want a specific gacha, right? And you have to keep putting money in to get that the thing you actually want. And you're pulling those like little lottery tickets, I'm saying. And a lot of times when there's a secondary market, you can sell that and get more money back. For like trading cards, for example. You open trading card packs, you want to get like a really high value, especially Pokemon. Pokemon is crazy. I don't know if you know this, but they're like even not really old Pokemon cards. I'm not talking about like collector's Pokemon cards, but like modern sets of Pokemon cards that you can buy, like just came out, that you can get cards that are worth like, what's it, over Jumon in, just for you to understand it, like $1,000. And kids can as well. You know what I'm saying? So I've seen like locally, and like when I've been seeing some of the game stores, there are kids who look like 9 or 10, like they're like begging their parents for these packs, and the store owner goes, "There's only one per person, only one per person." And I think a lot of people have this image of, old men in their 30s and 40s going out to buy Pokemon cards for money, and that is true. But I can see the inner 40-year-old of these 9-year-olds. You know what I'm saying? So like those, a lot of those 40-year-olds were at one point, kid, like, I'm not a 40-year-old, but I'm saying like me, who got into Pokemon Yu-Gi-Oh, the fire didn't die. The fire only got bigger. You know what I'm saying? And I was saying, I think it's a little weird that
I don't
that's just
think
a
you
norm.
can say that as like gambling. They just want what they
How is it
want.
not gambling?
Gambling.
No, but you don't. You're not buying the thing you want. You're buying a thing to get a chance at the thing you want, right?
ギャンブリングはさ、なんて言うんだろうさ、なんかギャンブリング結構私のイメージ的には、お金バーサスお金って感じのイメージがある。このもっとお金を得るためにお金を出すみたいな。だけど、この遊戯王とかの場合ってさ、実際のものが、ね、
But the cards have value though that you can then exchange for cash. Right? Like for example, for me, I'll at least say that I would personally rather play game of pachinko than I would with a gacha because at the very least pachinko I get to play a game with a lot of times with the gacha machine. Not gacha, but the crane games. Crane games. A lot of times with the crane games, you get literally nothing for your time. Like the game is not that fun. But at least with pachinko.
ガチャをやる人の
Not
心
gacha,
理
but the crane game. Not gacha.
クレーンゲームもさ、あれをやる心理っていうのはさ、まず first、非売品であるとかじゃない？まずね、普通のショップで買えないようなものがクレーンゲームであると。で、二つ目がさ、このプロセスが楽しいんじゃない？もうすぐで取れる。やっぱ難しい。じゃあちょっともう一回やるかみたいな。
Do you know how much fun I had when I wasted 3,000 yen trying to get a bond, like a bondo from Spy Family Dog, and then got absolutely nothing for all that money? I wish I spent that on pachinko.
あれじゃよ、一緒にやる、例えばね、ああいうのって大体友達でやる人とか、一人やる人もいるけどさ、苦労して取ったっていう思い出とか、あと、プラスで、だいたいああいうでかいぬいぐるみとかってさ、非売品であるとともに、普通に売ってたとして買うと、3000円以上はするんだよ、多分。もう5000円以上はすると思うよ。で、例えば3000円かけて1個取ったってなったら、元は取ってるってことやん。だし、そのプロセスも楽しいんじゃない？
No, but you realize that the reason they put them in the crane games is because they make more money from people losing money, not getting anything. Like I got nothing for my money. I got nothing.
そうね。だから中にはそういう人もいると。
No, but okay, I don't know why you're defending. I didn't expect you to take the defense of all companies basically making gambling for kids. You got to be a corporate lawyer here, but anyways, this kind of derailed. I didn't realize it'd go this long, but yeah, thank you for making me think about all these things, Brian, and appreciate the comment. That bell means we've reached the end of today's episode. Thanks for joining us on the lazy conversation towards fluency. If you have any language-related questions and are looking for general advice, send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com. We might respond in the next episode. Also, consider supporting us on Ko-Fi to get video updates, Discord access, and or just lend a hand. And finally, make sure to check out our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and more. We'd appreciate the support. This has been Joey.
Yami.
Signing off.
じゃあねー。
じゃあねー。